What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by. And time for another review. Netflix just released on May 3rd Joe Berlinger's biographical crime thriller based on Ted Bundy. Extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile. I still can't get over how long of a title that is. Before I get started, as always, guys, I'd like to hear from you all. Tell me in the comments below what you thought about this movie. If you had a chance to see it, if you had Netflix, what did you think of Zac Efron's performance as Ted Bundy? And of course, consider clicking on that subscribe button as well as tapping on that bell in order to hear future notifications on any content that I may create for you guys. So Ted Bundy has been more or less pretty popular when it comes to Netflix. Back in January, we had the documentary The Ted Bundy Tapes, which was an account of his murders and how it tracked up to the point where he got caught and his court hearing and up to his death penalty. This is the companion to that series, to where it was more of a dramatization of what unfolded up to that point. The two main stars of this film are Zac Efron portraying Ted Bundy, and then you have Lily Collins portraying Liz Kendall. So if you all watched the Ted Bundy tapes, this movie is in comparison to that in regards to the story. It begins with him in the early 70s when he starts committing these murders all the way to the end of the 70s when he is in the Florida State Prison. Now, when it comes to his murders, they don't show that in this movie. It's all about the relationship between him and Liz and how Liz is supporting him, and she pretty much believes that he is incapable of this. So that there's that constant struggle of her faith being tested on whether he did it or not. And you see Ted going through everything he went through, especially if you're familiar with the Ted Bundy story and how he escaped twice from the police and how he got caught again, and all those little details are all in this movie, but the core of the story is that relationship between him and Liz. First and foremost, I have to say, the one thing I loved about this movie was Zac Efron. I was so convinced that he was Ted Bundy, I forgot I was watching Zac Efron.
That's not even the worst part, Liz. What happened in Utah wasn't just dumb luck. The police already had my name. Someone gave it to them.
And when you see something like that in a movie, you know it's something special for a person to portray a real-life figure in history, and in this case, a serial killer. I wasn't even born when he was committing these murders. I see through the footage of what kind of a man he was. He was a very intellectual, can do no harm type of person, but behind those eyes was a very manipulative, powerful, very sick man. And Zac Efron pulled it off really well. And for an actor like him, he's come a long way. He started off in High School Musical years ago, and that's a movie I don't really care about. But over the years, he's gotten better and better with his performances. He was never bad, but he improved so much. And this is the peak, I think, of his acting ability, which is a very, very good thing. And I hope to see more performances that are just as good or even better in years to come. Lily Collins, she was also great in this film. She was very believable in the role. Everyone else did good in regards to the real life roles that they were playing, but in the end, Zac Efron was the one, I think, that kept me invested in this movie and kept me wanting to watch more and more to see how everything would unfold, even though I knew what was coming. I did also like the look of this film. It does have a 70s vibe, as it should be, since it does start in 1969 and going on for the next 10 years. And John Berlinger did a good job in recreating this world with the costume design, the hair design, the production design. It just did what it should have done in fitting into that whole world, and it felt even more believable along with Zac Efron's performance. So as I said before, the reason why I was so invested in this movie, why I kept watching it, was because of Zac Efron. That's why I liked it so much. In regards to the story, if you're not familiar with the Ted Bundy story of what he did in the 1970s, or if you never watched the Ted Bundy tapes, that documentary, then I recommend watching that first before watching this movie, because this film assumes that you know a lot of stuff that they leave out that they tell in the Ted Bundy documentary. This movie is mostly about the relationship between Ted and Liz, along with the little highlights of the points that everyone's familiar with of what Ted Bundy did, like his escapes and him going to prison and the courtroom trial that he went through. And to go along with that, this movie does run at a pretty fast pace. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, and with everything I already mentioned, that's what you get with that amount of time. And with the documentary series, which was about 4 episodes from what I remember, each being about an hour long, you do get a lot more info from that series. And with that, I felt like they could have incorporated a bit of that into this movie. But I feel the director pretty much expects anyone who's seen this movie has already seen the documentary series. So as I said before, they go hand in hand. So I recommend watching that first, then this movie. Otherwise, you may be a bit confused about what happens in this film if you're not as familiar with Ted Bundy. And along with that, the narrative, while it's very interesting narrative, it's through the eyes of the girlfriend along with Ted Bundy, and the majority of film is in a courtroom drama. I think this is a somewhat entertaining movie, a bit of a weak narrative that could have been worked on a bit more, but with Zac Efron's performance, it really keeps you invested to watch more of it. If you're interested in Ted Bundy's story, I suggest watching the documentary. If you want to see Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy, then watch this film. Just tell me in the comments below whether you liked it or you hate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Y'all have a great weekend, and that's a wrap.